Most people spend their entire lives believing that external circumstances determine their destinies. Meanwhile, a silent truth waits to be discovered. Your mind doesn't just interpret your reality, it creates it. Wallace D. Wattles, a man who lived more than a century ago, discovered something that remains revolutionary to this day. There's one thinking substance of which all things are made, he wrote, and which, in its original state, penetrates, permeates, and fills the interstices of the universe. This thinking substance responds to human thought. It doesn't just react, it molds itself, reorganizes itself according to the vibratory quality of your mind. When you form a thought with clarity and purpose, you literally imprint that pattern on the original substance of the universe. Think of the mind as a cosmic projector, the image you project with its details. Your emotional intensity, your inner conviction determines what will eventually materialize in your experience. Most of us project confused, contradictory images. Weakened by doubt, we're like filmmakers who can't decide which story they want to tell. The result? A life equally confused, contradictory, weakened. Robert was an ordinary man, working an uninspiring job, living a life that seemed predetermined by his birth, education, and economic circumstances. For years, he blamed the system, his parents, his bosses, the economy, everything and everyone except the only force he had real control over, his own mind. When he discovered Wattles' teachings, Robert initially resisted. It sounded too simple, almost childish, but he decided to do an experiment. For 90 days, he would dedicate 20 minutes every morning to forming a clear mental picture of who he wanted to become and the life he wanted to create. Not just vaguely dreaming, but visualizing in vivid detail, feeling the associated emotions as if you were already living that reality. In the early days, his mind wandered constantly. Decades of disordered thinking are not easily corrected, but gradually, his ability to concentrate improved. The mental image became more vivid, more stable, more charged with emotional certainty. After 6 weeks, something started to change. Not in his external circumstances, those remained unchanged. The change occurred in his perception. Where before I saw only obstacles, I began to see opportunities. Where I saw only limitations, I began to see unexplored possibilities. One morning, on the subway on his way to work, Robert had an idea to improve a process in his department. It wasn't a revolutionary idea, it was simply something he had never considered before. Because his thinking was so limited by what already was that he never considered what could be. This small idea led to a series of events, a suggestion to his supervisor, a pilot project, recognition from management, a promotion to lead company-wide implementation. 2 years later, Robert was in a position he never would have imagined possible. Circumstances did not change by chance. They changed because the quality of their thinking changed first. Thinking substance responded to the new pattern he consistently projected. Thinking the right way is not about superficial positive thinking. It is a profound mental discipline that requires daily practice. It's forming clear, detailed, stable images of your intentions. It's about imbuing these images with emotional certainty. It's about staying focused on what you want to create, not what you fear or want to avoid. You are creating your reality every moment through the quality of your thoughts. The question is not whether this happens. It is a law as immutable as gravity. The question is, are you creating consciously or by default? Are you projecting clear images or a fuzzy film? Are you imprinting patterns of abundance into thinking substance, or allowing old patterns of limitation to continue reproducing? Your mind is the most powerful creative instrument in the universe. It's not a metaphor, it's a physical reality, confirmed by the modern quantum science that Wallace D. Wattles intuited more than a century ago. The first step to living great is accepting this truth and beginning to use your mind with deliberate purpose. Gratitude is not just a moral virtue, it is a creative force that alters the vibrational structure of your consciousness. When Wattles wrote about gratitude, he wasn't talking about a polite social practice, but a fundamental law that governs the flow of energy in the universe. Many people who order their lives correctly in every other respect remain in poverty. Because of their lack of gratitude, he wrote, This statement may seem extreme, but it contains a profound truth that few understand. Gratitude is the vibrational frequency that tunes your mind to the abundance that already exists in the universe. It's not about attracting new things to you. It's about tuning into the abundance that is already present, but invisible to your current perception. There are 3 progressive levels of gratitude that Wattles identified, although he did not explicitly name them. The first is reactive gratitude, feeling grateful for good things that have already occurred in your life. The second is anticipatory gratitude, feeling grateful for blessings that are still in the process of manifesting, as if they were already in your hands. The third, and most powerful, is gratitude as a permanent state of being, a constant appreciation for the abundance inherent in life itself, regardless of external circumstances. Most people only practice the first level, and even then inconsistently. They feel gratitude when something obviously good happens, and then return to the default state of worry, complaint, or dissatisfaction. Maria was a talented professional, but chronically stressed and dissatisfied. His mind was constantly focused on what was missing, what needed fixing, what could go wrong. When confronted with the idea that gratitude could transform her experience, she responded with skepticism. "I will be grateful when I have something to be grateful for," she thought. Even so, at the insistence of a friend, Maria agreed to do a gratitude experiment for 30 days. Every morning, before checking email or news, she would spend 5 minutes writing down 3 things she was genuinely grateful for. And every night, before going to sleep, I would repeat the process. In the early days, Maria struggled to find meaningful things to be thankful for. "I have a roof over my head," or "I have food on the table" seemed obvious, almost trivial. But as he continued his practice, he began to notice nuances of abundance that he had never noticed before. The quality of sunlight streaming through the window in the morning, the feel of warm water as he showers, the complex flavor of fresh fruit, the spontaneous smile of a stranger on the street after 2 weeks. Something subtle began to change in his experience. Situations that would previously have troubled her for the rest of the day. An unkind comment from a colleague, a late project, a traffic jam now seemed to affect her mental state less. Not that she had become indifferent, but her ability to return to a state of balance had strengthened. It was in the 3rd week that Maria began to experience the second level of gratitude, anticipatory gratitude. She began to feel gratitude not just for what she already had, but for what was coming her way. Before an important meeting, instead of worrying about everything that could go wrong, she felt grateful for the positive outcome, as if it had already happened. To his surprise, this practice didn't create disappointment when things didn't turn out exactly as he imagined. Instead, it created a kind of mental flexibility that allowed him to find the value in any outcome. At the end of the 30 days, Maria noticed tangible changes in her life. His stress level had decreased significantly. His sleep had improved. Their relationships seemed more harmonious, and interestingly, professional opportunities began to emerge from unexpected places, a former client recommending her for a high-profile project, an invitation to speak at a conference in her field, a collaboration offer that perfectly matched her skills. Did these opportunities not exist before? Or was your mind, tuned to the frequency of gratitude, now able to perceive them and draw them into your experience? Gratitude works like a powerful magnet because it changes your energy field. When you live in a state of genuine appreciation, you become a natural conduit for more experiences that deserve appreciation. It's not mysticism, it's quantum physics applied to human consciousness. Practicing deep gratitude is not a manifestation technique. It is a way of reconnecting with the true nature of reality, which is fundamentally abundant. The universe is not a place of scarcity where you have to fight to get your share. It is an infinite field of potential, constantly responding to the vibratory quality of your consciousness. Start cultivating the 3 levels of gratitude today. Be grateful for what you already have. Give thanks for what is coming your way, as if it were already here. And more deeply, cultivate a permanent state of appreciation for life itself, regardless of external circumstances. This is the channel through which all abundance flows. Anyone who observed Wattles from afar might think that his system was purely mental, a philosophy of manifestation without the need for physical effort. Nothing could be further from the truth. Thought is the creative force or impulsive power that causes the creative power to act, he wrote. But thought itself will not form it into perforated form and create things. Action is absolutely necessary, but not just any kind of action. There's a specific quality of action that Wattles called the right way. It is a way of acting that transcends both the anxious hyperactivity and the complacent passivity that characterize most people. Certo modo has four distinct characteristics. First, it is action with clarity of purpose. Every movement, no matter how small, is connected to your larger vision. Second, it is action with full presence. Your attention is completely focused on what you are doing in the present moment, not scattered between past and future. Third, it is efficient action. You do as much as possible with as little wasted energy. Fourth, it is action without anxiety. You act with calm confidence, not frantic haste or fear. Carlos was an entrepreneur who embodied the opposite of these qualities. I was always busy, constantly multitasking, jumping from one emergency to another. His mind was rarely present to what his hands were doing. He worked long hours, but actual efficiency was minimal, and every action was driven by a combination of anxiety about the future and frustration with the present. When he encountered Wattles' teachings, one phrase particularly struck him: do every day everything that can be done that day, but do each act efficiently. Carlos reflected honestly on his approach to work and realized that he was doing many things, but few of them efficiently. He decided to do a radical experiment. He would cut his workload in half, but devote twice as much attention to each task. In the first few days, the anxiety was almost unbearable. His mind kept insisting that he was leaving important things undone, that his business was going to fail, that he was being irresponsible. But he persisted, trusting the system he was testing. He started each day with a list of just 3 truly important tasks. For each one, he asked himself, how can I accomplish this in the right way? How can I do this with clear purpose, total presence, maximum efficiency, and calm confidence? Gradually, something extraordinary began to happen. Tasks that would normally take hours were completed in half the time. Decisions that previously paralyzed him with anxiety were now made with clarity and confidence. Important emails that would previously have been buried in your inbox now receive thoughtful, insightful responses. But the most significant transformation occurred in its interactions with customers and employees. When Carlos was fully present in a conversation, not checking his phone, not thinking about the next meeting, not formulating his response while the other person was still talking, the quality of communication improved dramatically. Clients who were undecided finally closed. Contracts. Employees who were disengaged suddenly came up with valuable ideas. Partners who were hesitant now demonstrated full commitment. Carlos realized that he had been operating under an illusion, the belief that amount of activity equals real progress. Certain mode revealed a different truth. The quality of your presence in each action matters more than the quantity of actions performed. After 3 months of applying these principles, Carlos was working fewer hours than ever, but his business was growing faster. He had more energy at the end of the day. His creativity had expanded, and, ironically, he was accomplishing more because he was doing less but doing everything in the right way. This is the great paradox of efficient action. Less often produces more. When each action is performed with a superior quality of consciousness, a single email written with full presence and clarity of purpose can accomplish more than 20 emails sent in a state of mental distraction. A single conversation conducted in the right way can transform a relationship more profoundly than months of superficial interactions. Every action you take in the right way becomes a statement to the universe, not just for the result it produces, but for the quality of consciousness it expresses. And the universe always responds to your consciousness before responding to your physical actions. Start transforming the quality of your actions today. Before every task, no matter how mundane it may seem, ask yourself, how can I accomplish this in the right way? Be fully present, completely engaged. perfectly focused on what you're doing in this moment. This simple change in approach can transform not only your external results, but your internal experience of life itself. Lack of clear vision is most people's biggest limitation. It's not that they lack capabilities or opportunities, it's that they lack a clear picture of what they really want to create with their lives. As Wattles wrote, you cannot convey something you do not possess in thought. You cannot create what you cannot conceive. The vision of a greater purpose goes beyond material objectives or professional achievements. It's a deep understanding of who you are, why you are here, and what unique contribution you are destined to make to the world. It's a mental image that integrates your personal aspiration with the greater good, what Wattles called aligned purpose. Many people confuse external goals with internal purpose. They seek promotions, accumulate possessions, chase status only to discover that even when they achieve these goals, they still feel an emptiness inside. Why? Because these achievements were not connected to a greater purpose that resonated with your true nature. Aligned purpose has three essential characteristics. First, it intrinsically energizes you. You feel most alive when you're expressing it. Second, it serves something greater than yourself. It genuinely contributes to the well-being of others. Third, he uses his natural gifts and life experiences in an integrated way, including his difficulties and challenges. Sophia was a successful marketing executive by external standards. He had a prestigious position, good salary, and professional recognition. However, she felt increasingly disconnected from her work. The projects that once excited her now seemed empty. The long hours at the office seemed to consume his life without real purpose. When she discovered the concept of aligned purpose in Wattles' writings, Sophia decided to embark on a four-step process to clarify her own vision. First, he dedicated time to contemplative silence, stepping away from daily distractions to allow deeper insights to emerge. Second, she examined moments of flow in her lifetimes when she lost track of time because she was completely absorbed in something she loved doing. Third, ask yourself honestly, what does the world need that I am uniquely positioned to provide? Fourth, visualize what your life would be like in 5 years if you were living fully aligned with your purpose. This process did not produce an immediate response, but it planted seeds that began to germinate in the following months. Sophia began to notice patterns in her life experiences. Since childhood, she had a natural gift for helping people express their stories in authentic and impactful ways. As a marketing executive, she had always felt most fulfilled when helping brands find and communicate their core values, not just sell more products. Gradually, a vision began to crystallize to create a consultancy that helped organizations with a social purpose communicate their missions more effectively, amplifying their positive impact on the world. This vision intrinsically energized Sophia, served something greater than herself, and integrated her natural talents with her professional experience. The first steps were modest. While still keeping her job, Sophia began offering pro bono consulting on the weekends for a few nonprofit organizations. These experiences not only confirmed his vision, but refined it. She found that her biggest impact came not just from creating communication strategies, but from helping leaders connect more deeply with their own purpose. After 8 months of splitting her time between her corporate job and her nascent consultancy, Sophia made a bold decision. He asked for a reduction in his working hours at his job to dedicate 2 days a week to his new venture. 6 months later, he took the final leap and dedicated himself fully to his vision. 4 years after initially discovering the concept of aligned purpose, Sophia was leading a thriving consultancy that had helped dozens of socially impactful organizations amplify their messages. Her days were filled with work that deeply energized her. His impact on the world had multiplied, and ironically, their financial prosperity had grown significantly, although this had never been the main objective. Clear vision of purpose didn't just transform your outer life, it transformed your inner experience of life. Where there was once discontent, there was now deep satisfaction. Where there was confusion, there was now clarity. Where there had been stagnation, there was now continued growth. This is the transformative power of vision for greater purpose. It's not just a map to your external goals. It's a reconnection to your essential nature and your unique contribution to the world. It is the guiding thread that integrates all other principles, giving them direction and meaning. You don't need to have all the answers right away. Purpose often reveals itself gradually through a combination of internal contemplation and external action. Start by asking yourself, what naturally energizes me? Where can I serve in a meaningful way? How have my life experiences, including challenges, prepared me to make a unique contribution? Then take small, consistent steps in the direction that feels most aligned, being open to your vision evolving and expanding over time. Among the most misunderstood principles of Wattles' teachings is the concept of active waiting. Many incorrectly interpret the idea of manifestation as something instantaneous. You visualize what you want and it appears immediately. The reality is more subtle. As Wattles wrote, you cannot plant an oak seed in the morning and expect to see it as a full-grown oak in the evening. There is a gestational period between mental sowing and material harvest. During this period, most people make one of two mistakes. They prematurely abandon their vision because they don't see immediate results, or they fall into passive waiting without taking the necessary actions in the present. Active waiting is fundamentally different from passive waiting. Passive waiting is characterized by doubt, anxiety, and a focus on external signs of progress. Active waiting is characterized by internal certainty, energetic alignment, and focus on the work of the present moment, regardless of visible external results. There are 3 essential practices for active waiting. First, maintain clarity of vision even when external circumstances seem to contradict it. Second, act in the present with excellence, carrying out the immediate work with total presence. Third, cultivate unshakable certainty about the end result, even without knowing exactly when or how it will manifest itself. Daniel was an aspiring writer working on his first novel while holding down a full-time job. His vision was clear: publish a book that touches readers deeply, and allow writing to become his livelihood. For 2 years, he worked consistently on his manuscript, dedicating the first few hours of each morning to his creative practice. At first, I was full of enthusiasm and certainty, but as the months passed with no visible external results, no publishing contract, no literary agent, no external validation, doubt began to grow. Maybe I'm wasting my time, he thought. Maybe I just don't have enough talent. It was at this crucial moment that Daniel encountered the concept of active waiting in Wattles' writings. He realized he was doing the seeding part correctly. He was creating his book with discipline and dedication. But he had failed at the waiting part. He had allowed doubt to eat away at his inner certainty. Daniel decided to consciously practice active waiting every morning before he began writing. He relived his ultimate vision in vivid detail, not as a distant dream, but as a reality already existing in potential form. During the day, as he went about his regular work, he maintained an internal state of anticipatory gratitude, feeling grateful for the success of his book as if it were already a fait accompli. The hardest part was cultivating unshakable certainty, when all external evidence seemed to indicate otherwise. Daniel had sent his partial manuscript to 12 literary agents and received 12 rejections. The voice of doubt constantly whispered, "See, this will never happen." It was precisely at this moment, when he was about to give up, that Daniel understood the true essence of active waiting. It wasn't about waiting for external validation to believe in your vision. It was about maintaining internal certainty regardless of external circumstances. As Wattles explained, belief is based on seeing the invisible rather than looking at the visible. Daniel decided to continue for another 6 months, pledging to maintain absolute certainty during this period, regardless of the results. He continued writing every morning. He continued to visualize the final result clearly. He continued to feel grateful in advance. But, crucially, it stopped looking for external signs of progress. He stopped sending the unfinished manuscript to agents. He stopped comparing his journey to that of other writers. He simply focused on completing his work to the best of his ability, trusting that the perfect time for its outward manifestation was approaching. 5 months later, when the manuscript was finally complete, Daniel sent it to just 3 carefully selected agents. 2 weeks later, he received an email from one of them expressing genuine interest. 3 months later, he signed a contract with a respected publisher. 18 months after publication, his book had sold enough to allow him to reduce his regular job to part-time, devoting more time to writing his second novel. What had changed? Not his talent as a writer, he had the same potential from the beginning. What has changed is your understanding of the manifestation process and your ability to practice active waiting, maintaining clarity of vision, acting with excellence in the present, and cultivating internal certainty independent of external confirmation. This is one of the most challenging aspects of the Wattles system, but also one of the most powerful. Most people abandon their most meaningful dreams not because they are incapable of realizing them, but because they give up during the gestational period, when the seed is growing invisibly underground. Active waiting is an art that requires daily practice. It's keeping your vibration aligned with your ultimate desire, even when all external evidence seems to contradict it. It's doing today's work with full presence and excellence, trusting that each aligned action is contributing to the manifestation of your greater vision. Even if you can't draw the direct connection, we live in a society that constantly reinforces scarcity. The news focuses on what is wrong, what is missing, what is threatened. Advertising bombards us with messages of insufficiency. You don't have enough. You are not enough. You need more to be happy. The economic system itself seems to operate under the premise that resources are limited, and we must compete for our share. In this context, maintaining a mindset of genuine abundance may seem naive or even delusional. However, Wattles made a crucial distinction that many overlook. There's a difference between artificial scarcity created by human systems and natural abundance inherent in the universe. Look at the universe. He wrote, there is no limitation of supply. The original substance is infinite, is everywhere, and responds to all human desires. This is not a mystical statement, but an observation of nature. A single seed contains the potential for an entire forest. The sun pours enough energy onto Earth in 1 hour to power all of humanity for a year. Human creativity, when released, finds solutions that transform apparent scarcity into real abundance. Maintaining this perspective in a world that constantly asserts the opposite requires deliberate practices. There are 4 essential strategies for cultivating an abundant mindset in an environment of scarcity. First, selective consumption of information. Most people ingest information randomly, allowing any content to enter their minds. Those who live in abundance are rigorous curators of their information diet, consciously choosing what they allow to influence their mental patterns. Second, strategic social circle. As Jim Rohn famously said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Intentionally surround yourself with people who think in terms of possibilities, not limitations. This doesn't mean avoiding people with real struggles, but being selective about who you allow to influence your worldview. Third, conscious language. The words you use shape your reality. Eliminate scarcity expressions like I can't afford it, there will never be enough, that's impossible, or who do you think you are to want that? Replace them with expressions that reflect possibility and abundance. Fourth, contemplation of nature. Spend time regularly observing how nature operates from principles of abundance, trees producing thousands of seeds, flowers opening effortlessly in the sun, birds receiving daily sustenance. Nature is your constant reminder of how the universe really works. Aisha grew up in challenging economic circumstances, absorbing messages of limitation and scarcity from an early age. His father often said, "People like us never get rich." His mother added, "Money doesn't grow on trees." These weren't just casual expressions, they were deep mental programming that shaped her relationship with abundance. When she discovered Wattles' teachings on the abundant mindset, Aisha was initially resistant. How could he believe in unlimited abundance when his life experience had consistently demonstrated the opposite? Even so, he decided to do an experiment for 60 days. He committed to practicing the 4 strategies for cultivating an abundant mindset, not with the expectation of miraculous results, but with genuine curiosity to see if his inner experience would change. It started with the selective consumption of information. He canceled alarmist news and subscriptions to media focused on problems without solutions. Instead, he actively sought out sources that highlighted innovations, creative solutions, and stories of abundance manifested in challenging circumstances. As for the strategic social circle, Aisha could not simply abandon family and friends. Instead, he intentionally expanded his circle to include people with a growth mindset. Participated in a study group on personal development. She found a mentor who had already achieved the kind of financial freedom she aspired to. Maintained existing relationships, but became more conscious about what conversations he fostered. Mindful language was particularly challenging. Aisha was shocked to realize how many expressions of scarcity she used daily. I can't afford it. This is too expensive. I will never be able to. I have to choose between A or B. Gradually, he trained himself to replace these expressions. I am choosing to prioritize other things at the moment. What creative solution can I find? I am in the process of becoming capable. How can I create a situation where I can have both A and B? Finally, Aisha incorporated nature contemplation into her daily routine. Even though he lived in an urban environment, he found a small park where he spent 15 minutes every morning, simply observing the workings of nature. The ability of plants to find light through cracks in the concrete, the constant cycle of renewal. The way natural systems operated through cooperation, not just competition. After 60 days, Aisha noticed significant changes in her internal experience. The constant anxiety about money had subsided. His creativity in finding solutions had increased. Opportunities seemed to rise more frequently, not because the external world had changed, but because his perception was attuned to recognizing them. But the real test came when his company announced a restructuring, eliminating his department. 2 years earlier, Aisha would have panicked, seeing only disaster and limitation. Now, with an empowered abundance mindset, she saw the situation differently, as an opportunity for reinvention, as space to explore possibilities that her previous job didn't allow. Over the next 3 months, Aisha combined her corporate skills with her passion for teaching young people about financial intelligence, something she would never have considered in her previous mindset. Not only did he create a new career more in line with his talents, he eventually tripled his previous income. The abundance mindset is not toxic optimism that denies real problems. It is a clear-eyed recognition that even in challenging circumstances, there are always unexplored possibilities, unrecognized resources, and potential for creative transformation. It is the deep understanding that perceived scarcity often results more from limitations in our perception than from limitations in objective reality. The 6 principles we have explored so far do not work as isolated techniques, but as integral parts of a coherent system. As Wattles wrote, working intellectually without also working morally and physically is unsustainable and leads to undesirable results. True mastery comes from the harmonious integration of all elements. Each principle reinforces and amplifies the others, creating what we can call the virtuous Wattles cycle. Clear thinking principle 1 naturally generates gratitude principle 2, which energizes efficient action principle 3, which clarifies purpose principle 4, which sustains active waiting principle 5, which strengthens abundant mindset principle 6, which in turn elevates the quality of thinking, restarting the cycle at progressively higher levels. David discovered Wattles' teachings during a period of stagnation in his life. Initially enthusiastic, he began to apply the principles in a fragmented way. I practice creative visualization every morning principle 1, but continued to act scattered and anxious throughout the day, ignoring principle 3. He made statements of gratitude principle 2, but maintained a social circle that reinforced scarcity, ignoring principle 6. He had a clear vision of his material objectives principle 4, but abandoned projects at the first sign of difficulty, ignoring principle 5. After 6 months of inconsistent results, David realized he was approaching Wattles' system like an a la carte menu, choosing the principles that seemed easiest or most appealing. He then decided to study more deeply how the principles were interconnected, forming a coherent system. He began to identify the weak links in his practice. He realized that his greatest difficulty was in Principle 3 action in the certain mode, and Principle 5 active waiting. He oscillated between anxious hyperactivity and procrastination, rarely finding the balance of efficient and patient action. And I often abandoned important projects when I didn't see immediate results, instead of maintaining internal certainty during the gestational period, rather than trying to fix everything at once. David focused first on strengthening these specific weak links. For Principle 3, he established the practice of performing only 3 important tasks per day, but performing them with full presence and impeccable excellence. For Principle 5, he created a certainty diary, where he recorded daily his unshakable confidence in the manifestation of his vision, independent of external evidence. As I strengthened these specific principles, something extraordinary began to happen. The other principles I already practiced regularly: creative visualization, gratitude, clarity of purpose naturally became more powerful. The system began to function as an integrated organism, each part strengthening the others. This holistic view is what sets Wattles' approach apart from so many fragmented personal development systems. He never separated material, mental, and spiritual aspects into distinct categories. For him, financial prosperity, spiritual development, physical health, and harmonious relationships were different expressions of the same universal energy flowing unobstructed. Within a year of adopting this integrated approach, David's life had transformed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. His business prospered not because he worked longer hours, but because every action he took emanated from a higher quality of consciousness. His relationships had deepened because the same presence he applied to his work now informed his interactions with others. His health had improved because he treated his body with the same respect and attention he gave to his professional projects. It wasn't just your external circumstances that changed, it was your internal experience of life. Where there was once fragmentation, there was now integration. Where there had been conflict between different aspects of his life, there was now harmony. Where there was effort, there was now flow. This is the true gift of Wattles' integrated system. Not just prosperity in a specific dimension, but a life grandly lived in its entirety. It is the recognition that your essential nature is not fragmented, and therefore your expression in the world need not be either. When you apply these principles as a coherent system, you are not just applying techniques to obtain specific results. You are realigning yourself with the fundamental laws that govern manifestation in all dimensions. You are reconnecting with your original nature as a creative and expressive being, capable of shaping your reality through the quality of your consciousness. The weakest link in your own system may be different from David's. Perhaps you visualize clearly and act efficiently, but lack deep gratitude. Or maybe you have a clear purpose and an abundant mindset, but lack patience during the pregnancy period. Identify where your practice needs strengthening and focus there first, trusting that this approach will eventually lift the entire system. Integration does not happen overnight. It is a daily practice of conscious alignment, of recognizing the connections between thought, feeling, and action, between the visible and the invisible, between the material and the immaterial. It is the understanding that, as Wattles taught, there is but one substance, and its expression in different forms and dimensions follows the same universal laws. The science of living greatly, as revealed by Wallace D. Wattles, remains as revolutionary today as when it was first articulated over a century ago. In an era of increasing complexity and accelerating change, these principles offer timeless clarity and a proven path to conscious manifestation. The transformative power of this system comes not just from intellectual knowledge, but from consistent application. Wattles himself emphasized, if you wish to act or do anything, you must first know what you are doing. You must act in a certain way, for only then will your action be effective. When you integrate these 7 principles, the creative power of the focused mind, gratitude as a magnetic force acting in the right way, vision for higher purpose, the power of active waiting, the abundant mindset, and systems vision, you are not simply applying techniques to improve your external circumstances. It is realigning your consciousness with the fundamental laws that govern manifestation in all dimensions. The true beauty of this system is that transformation begins immediately, in the quality of your internal experience, even before any visible changes in your external circumstances. You begin to live from a place of clarity, not confusion, of certainty, not anxiety, of abundance, not scarcity. On purpose, it doesn't drift. The science of living greatly is not reserved for the chosen or privileged few. It is your birthright as a conscious being, connected to the same intelligent substance that creates worlds and sustains galaxies. As Wattles wrote, the desire for wealth is simply the capacity for life-seeking fuller expression. I invite you to choose one of these principles, the one that resonates most deeply with you right now, and practice it intensely for the next 30 days. Don't try to implement everything at once. Start with a single entry point into the system, knowing that over time it will naturally lead to others. If the creative power of the mind speaks loudest to you, dedicate 20 minutes each morning to clear, detailed visualization. If gratitude resonates, practice the 3 levels progressively. If action in the right way feels more urgent, choose 3 important daily tasks and do them with full presence. If purpose is your calling, dedicate time to the 4-step process for clarification. If active waiting is your challenge, cultivate internal certainty independent of external evidence. If an abundant mindset appeals to you, implement the 4 practices to strengthen this perspective. The transformation you seek is already in process. From the moment you make the internal decision to live in line with these principles, the world you experience tomorrow will be the perfect result of the consciousness you cultivate today. Greatness already exists within you, awaiting expression. It's not something you need to chase or conquer, it's something you allow to flow naturally when you remove obstructions of limiting thinking, discordant emotions, and misaligned actions. The decision is yours. Will you continue to live by default, responding to circumstances as they appear? Or will you live by design, consciously creating your reality through the application of these powerful principles? The science of living greatly is available to you now. The infinite intelligence that permeates the universe is ready to respond to the quality of your consciousness. Are you ready to claim your birthright and live the extraordinary life that was destined to be yours?